Major League ball players take batting practice every day. Actors rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. Jascha Heifetz, the renowned violinist, is rumored to have said, if I don't practice for one day, I know it. If I don't practice for 2 days, the critics know it. If I don't practice for 3 days, the audience knows it. Okay? Neglect and atrophy aren't the only ways our circuits can change. When we change our minds about something, we really change our minds. To change habitual behavior, if there's something you want to change about yourself, the first thing that has to be done is you have to come to a decision that the benefits of the new behaviors outweigh the cost of continuing the old behaviors. In other words, I'm talking about a cost-benefit analysis. Let's see, what are the pros of continuing this behavior? What are the cons? What are the pros of that new behavior? What are the cons? We have to weigh those kinds of things in our mind and come to a decision. Because if we don't buy into it at the deepest level, nothing is going to change. No matter how hard you try, I don't care how many programs you try, okay, nothing is going to change. An example of that, I smoked for 40 years, okay, a couple of packs a day. In 1999, I was sitting on a hospital bed looking at my cardiologist, and she looked me in the eye and she said to me, if you continue smoking when you leave here, the chances of you having another heart attack are 4 times greater than if you do not. I had just had a major heart attack that damn near killed me. Okay. Still, in the car on the way home, I'm thinking, how can I get her to stop for a couple of packs of cigarettes or a carton? Because I'm dying here. They don't let you smoke in intensive care. Careful about that. And my wife looked at me and said, you start smoking again, I'm leaving, because I'm not going to stay here and watch you die. All right? All of a sudden, the cons of continuing that new behavior just shot through the roof. I hadn't smoked since. You know, obviously here she wouldn't be sitting here this morning because I believed her. Okay, but I had tried everything over the years. The last 10 years, I tried almost everything. I tried hypnosis, patches, pills, you name it. I tried it, but I didn't want to quit. I hadn't made that decision. It wasn't bad enough. And it was the same thing with my major addiction. I had to come to that decision. It's a very important thing. You first have to come to that decision by whatever means, okay? And then you have the motivation to do the work to change the behavior, because it's not easy. It's not easy. And I'm not standing here trying to say it is. It's hard work to change ingrown behavior. We act as we feel, and we feel as we think. Therefore, our thoughts drive our actions. We have to change, actually, the way we think and the way we believe, and what we believe about things. And there are a number of ways to do that. Cognitive behavioral therapy is one way that I happen to be rather familiar with. I'm just going to talk about this for a couple of minutes. Dr. Albert Ellis developed a psychotherapy in the 1950s called REBT, or Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. And it's based on an ABCDE kind of method. A being an activating event, B being your belief about the event, C being the consequences of that belief, and D being the dispute of that belief. And an example might be, I'll just do one quick example, your boss yells at you, and I'm going to put this in an addiction context because that's where I understand it best. Your boss yells at you, and immediately your belief is, I'm a worthless person. I don't belong on the face of the earth. I'm a bad employee. Okay? I can't do this job or any other job. I'd be better off if I was dead. All right? The consequence of that belief, because of the stress levels and everything else involved, could be, in the case of an addict, a relapse. Okay, what does REBT suggest? REBT suggests disputing that irrational belief. Of course, you're not a worthless person. You may have done that particular thing inappropriately, but that doesn't make you a worthless person. You are, in fact, not a bad person at all. You've done this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. You dispute the belief. You do that often enough and sincerely enough. You change the belief so that perhaps that very same cue, that very same activating event happening a few months down the road causes a totally different reaction. It causes you to believe, well, maybe he's right. Maybe I should have done that a little better. Or, gee, maybe there's a possibility he misunderstood something, or whatever. In any case, the belief becomes a rational belief rather than an irrational belief. And that's why you go through a process like that, to pay attention and ferret out your irrational beliefs that cause consequences that you don't particularly want, and change those irrational beliefs into rational beliefs. You pay attention and practice the new method until it becomes your new habit. Now, the old pathways don't necessarily turn around, wither, and die. They still could hang around, all right? I'm not saying those old behaviors couldn't come back if you let them. But what you've done is you've taken that habit, okay, out of the unconscious mind, and you've shone a light on it. You've moved it into the conscious arena, where now you can look at it and make a judgment, okay, which an addict, when he's using, doesn't make judgments, okay. You buy liquor, or you buy whatever. You don't make judgments, you don't think about it. So we're trying to shine a light on it. And the last thing I want to talk about today is neurogenesis. I'm not afraid of dying. I damn near did. I'm not afraid of death. What I am afraid of, though, in fact, I wouldn't move it to the terror stage, but I'm more than nervous, is living the final stages of my life in a less than cognizant manner. I am afraid of dementia, Alzheimer's, the same concerns I'm sure a lot of you have. I don't want to end up a drooling idiot. Okay, I don't want to, especially if I have to know I am. So part of my, I certainly don't want Gethin to have to take care of me either. So part of my research has been into, well, how can I personally avoid that? Well, there's no way to avoid it completely. I mean, what happens, happens, and we only have some control over it. But we do have some, and that's the important thing. We do grow new neurons. We do have the ability to stimulate not only neuron growth, but stimulate our brains. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can augment that process that goes on automatically anyway. First, and foremost is exercise. The number one way to promote neuron growth, the growth of new neurons, is to exercise. A couple of 2-3 times a week. A study at Columbia University, a rather large study, indicated that people who exercised 2 or 3 times a week had 2 to 3 times the growth of new neurons as compared with the control group who did not. 2 to 3 times the growth of new neurons. This sounds facetious, but it isn't. Blueberries have a dye, if I can pronounce this right. Anthocyanin is the dye in blueberries that makes them blue. That dye has the ability to penetrate the blood-brain barrier, and it goes to the dentate gyrus, which is part of the hippocampus, and stimulates the growth of new neurons. So these guys outside, they're doing you a favor. Okay? Blueberries are a way to stimulate neuron growth. Meditation. There's a major study done at Yale, Harvard, and MIT. People who meditate, and they used for the meditation group Buddhist monks. Okay, doing straight Buddhist meditation, focusing on breath, that kind of meditation. Had a marked increase in the thickness of their brain structure dealing with attention, sensory input, and memory. Attention, sensory input, and memory. Meditation's a pretty easy thing to do. I mean, I wandered off and did 15 minutes this morning. Part of it was to calm me down, and the other part was, you guys did great though, thanks. The other part was to, because I do that, okay? It's an easy thing to do. It doesn't require any money, doesn't require, anything other than your attention. Living in an enriched environment, a mentally stimulating environment enhances neurogenesis. And lastly, the actual act of learning is key not only to stimulate neuron growth, but also to put the new neurons to work, which is key. Doesn't do any good to grow them when you're pruning 20 billion a day, okay, if you're not going to put them to work. Learning a new language, it turns out, is one of the best ways to not only stimulate neuron growth, but put them to work. Try to learn something new and challenge yourself. Keep learning. That's the best way that science knows to maintain your mental acuity. You guys have been great. I thank you very much for your attention. Anybody has any questions?
Thank you, Pete Soderman, for your wonderful presentation. Next week, we